What if I told you that the way your brain heals tonight is already being decided by what you eat tomorrow morning, long before your head ever touches the pillow? Most people believe brain recovery happens only during sleep. But that belief hides a critical truth, because sleep is not when healing begins, it's when healing finishes. And what truly determines the quality of that repair is whether your brain received the right signals when the day started. That means every morning, without realizing it, you are either setting your brain up to sharpen memory and restore clarity overnight, or quietly blocking that process before it even has a chance to begin. Here's where things get uncomfortable, because for years we've been told that breakfast is optional, that coffee is enough, or that a piece of toast will do the job. But your brain doesn't run on habits or convenience. It runs on chemistry. And after a long night of detoxification, waste removal, and neural reset, your brain wakes up depleted, waiting for very specific nutrients to tell it, yes, it's safe to rebuild tonight. When that signal never arrives, the brain adapts. But it adapts by slowing down, by conserving energy, by letting memory slip just a little more each day. This is especially true after 60, because aging doesn't steal memory suddenly. It erodes it quietly through missed signals and small deficiencies that add up over years. According to a 2023 study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, adults over 60 who ate a protein-rich, serotonin-supportive breakfast performed 23% better on memory tests than those who skipped breakfast or relied on processed carbohydrates. 23% is not a small improvement. It's the difference between struggling to find words and speaking clearly, between rereading the same page and actually remembering what you read. And that difference came not from medication, but from food eaten in the morning. Yet most people never connect those dots. They wake up, rush the day, sip coffee, maybe grab something sweet, and wonder why their mind feels foggy by mid-morning, or why sleep feels lighter every year. What they don't realize is that by skipping the right breakfast, they've silenced the very nutrients their brain was counting on to finish its work that night. Over the last 3 decades, I've watched this pattern repeat itself again and again. Seniors who feel like their clarity is fading assume it's inevitable, that it's just part of getting older. But when we look closely, the most overlooked trigger for brain recovery isn't hidden in a pill bottle or locked behind a prescription. It's sitting quietly in the kitchen, ignored, misunderstood, or pushed aside by modern habits. And here's the part that surprises most people. You don't need supplements, powders, or trendy overnight recipes. You don't need expensive brain drinks or anything complicated. You need real food, simple food, the kind your body recognizes instantly and your brain still knows how to use. When you give it that food at the right time, something remarkable happens, because the brain responds not just during the day, but hours later while you sleep. That's why today matters. Because once you understand how 3 very ordinary morning foods work on a chemical level, you'll realize breakfast isn't just about energy, it's about instruction. It's how you tell your brain what kind of night it's allowed to have. So let's start with the first food, one that has been misunderstood, feared, and wrongly blamed for decades, even though it may be one of the most powerful tools for memory restoration we have, the humble boiled egg. For years, eggs were painted as the enemy, accused of raising cholesterol and harming the heart. Many seniors were told to avoid them entirely. But science has quietly corrected that story. And what we now understand is that a boiled egg, especially with the yolk intact, is one of the most efficient brain-supporting foods you can eat in the morning, because it delivers something your aging brain is desperate for. That nutrient is choline. Choline is not just another vitamin, it's a building block. Specifically, it's the precursor to acetylcholine, one of the most important neurotransmitters involved in memory formation, attention, and mental flexibility. When you remember a name, follow a conversation, or shift focus smoothly from one thought to another, acetylcholine is doing the work. Here's the problem. As we age, the brain's ability to produce acetylcholine declines. That decline doesn't announce itself loudly. Instead, it shows up as those familiar tip of the tongue moments, slower recall, trouble concentrating, and a general sense that thinking takes more effort than it used to. Most people assume that's just aging, but in many cases, it's a shortage of raw materials. One large egg contains about 147 milligrams of choline, nearly 30% of your daily requirement. When you eat 2 boiled eggs in the morning, you give your brain the substrate it needs to rebuild acetylcholine stores, not just for the day, but for the next sleep cycle. That's the part most people miss. The brain doesn't just use choline immediately. It uses the signal from choline availability to decide how much repair work it can afford to do later that night. This isn't speculation. In 2022, researchers at the University of Eastern Finland followed over 2,500 adults aged 55 to 75 for 6 years. Those with higher dietary choline intake had a 28% lower risk of developing early cognitive impairment and consistently performed better on memory recall tasks. The longer the intake was sustained, the stronger the protection became. A separate 2023 paper in the journal Nutrients found that older adults who ate eggs 3 to 5 times per week showed faster reaction times and better short-term memory than those who avoided them. The researchers concluded that regular intake of choline-rich foods may slow neurodegeneration and enhance cognitive resilience, meaning the brain becomes better at resisting age-related decline. But eggs don't stop at choline. They also provide vitamin B12, a nutrient essential for maintaining the myelin sheath, the protective insulation around your nerves that allows signals to travel quickly and accurately. When B12 levels drop, which is common in older adults due to reduced absorption, symptoms can include confusion, fatigue, numbness, and memory problems that closely resemble early dementia. Many people are treated for the symptoms without ever addressing the deficiency. Eggs offer a highly bioavailable form of B12, meaning your body can actually use it even when digestion has slowed with age. They also contain vitamin D, mostly in the yolk, which plays a role in mood regulation and serotonin balance. That matters more than most people realize because mood and memory are deeply intertwined. A brain under emotional stress does not heal efficiently, no matter how long you sleep. I remember a patient named Harold, 76 years old, who told me he felt like his mind was slipping through his fingers. He said he would read the same sentence over and over and still forget what it said. We didn't add medication. We didn't overhaul his diet. We added 2 boiled eggs to his breakfast every other day. 3 weeks later, he looked at me and said, "I don't just read better, I think better." That wasn't placebo. That was chemistry finally working in his favor. Timing matters here more than most people expect. The ideal window for eating eggs for brain support is within 2 hours of waking. That's when cortisol, your natural alertness hormone, rises. When cortisol meets choline, the brain ramps up neurotransmitter production and sets a stronger repair schedule for the next night. You're not just fueling the morning, you're programming the evening. And if cholesterol is still a concern in your mind, here's what the evidence says. A 2021 meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reviewed 17 studies and found no significant link between moderate egg consumption and cardiovascular disease in adults over 60. In fact, the cognitive benefits were consistently positive, especially when eggs were consumed, boiled, or soft-cooked without added fats. So the recommendation is simple. Start small. 2 boiled or soft-boiled eggs, lightly salted, maybe paired with a few greens or a slice of whole grain toast, no frying, no butter. Let the eggs do what they're designed to do. Because when your neurons are well fed at sunrise, they're far more capable of rebuilding themselves at midnight. And that brings us to the second morning food, one that feels comforting, almost old-fashioned, yet quietly orchestrates some of the most important processes in your brain, especially while you sleep. Oat porridge. There's a reason so many cultures start the day with something warm and soft. It's not just tradition, it's biology. Oats are far more than a cozy breakfast. They are one of the most effective ways to stabilize brain chemistry, reduce inflammation, and prepare your nervous system for deep overnight recovery. The first benefit comes from how oats deliver energy. They are rich in complex carbohydrates, which release glucose slowly and steadily into the bloodstream. Your brain runs on glucose, but it needs it delivered evenly without spikes. Sudden blood sugar swings create inflammation, oxidative stress, and mental crashes that show up as dizziness, confusion, and irritability, especially in older adults. A bowl of oats in the morning provides a sustained fuel source that keeps the brain stable for hours. That stability during the day directly affects what happens at night, because a brain that isn't battling blood sugar chaos has more capacity to enter deep, restorative sleep. But the real power of oats lies in beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that reduces systemic inflammation, including inflammation in the brain. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the strongest drivers of cognitive decline after 65, yet it often goes unnoticed because it doesn't cause pain, just gradual dysfunction. In 2022, a study published in Neuroscience found that beta-glucan intake improved working memory and attention span in older adults after just 8 weeks. The mechanism was clear. Reduced inflammation and improved glucose control led to better hippocampal function, and the hippocampus is where memory consolidation happens. Another 2021 study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that diets high in soluble fiber were associated with better sleep quality, longer deep sleep phases, and lower nighttime cortisol. That's critical, because deep sleep is when the brain clears beta amyloid proteins, consolidates memories, and repairs damaged neurons. Without enough deep sleep, those processes stall. Here's where timing becomes fascinating. When you eat oats in the morning, you increase the availability of tryptophan, an amino acid needed to produce serotonin. Serotonin supports mood and focus during the day, but later it becomes melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain it's time to sleep. So a bowl of oats at 8 in the morning can quietly influence how deeply you sleep at 10 that night. Oats are also rich in magnesium, a mineral involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including nerve function and stress regulation. Magnesium deficiency is common in older adults and contributes to poor sleep, anxiety, and brain fatigue. A 2023 randomized trial from the University of Tokyo showed that magnesium-rich breakfasts improved sleep latency, reduced nighttime awakenings, and enhanced short-term memory in participants over 60, all of that from a simple bowl of porridge. The key is preparation. Rolled oats or steel-cut oats cooked with water or unsweetened almond milk. A sprinkle of cinnamon or ground flaxseed is enough. Sugar and flavored packets undo the very benefits your brain is waiting for. Half a cup of dry oats is ideal. It digests slowly, keeps you full, and sends a calming signal to your nervous system that carries into the evening. When the brain feels steady all day, it sleeps deeper at night. When it sleeps deeper, it repairs more thoroughly. That's the chain reaction oats quietly set in motion. Now, there's one more morning food, often dismissed as too simple, too common, or too sugary, yet it plays a unique role in memory, mood, and sleep timing that neither eggs nor oats can fully replace. And the reason it works has less to do with energy and more to do with chemistry inside the brain itself. But to understand why this final food matters so much, especially for seniors struggling with light sleep, low mood, or foggy mornings, you need to understand what really controls your sleep cycle and how the timing of one amino acid can change everything. That control center I mentioned, the one that quietly decides whether your night will be deep and restorative or shallow and fragmented, is not your stomach and it's not your willpower. It's a delicate chemical pathway inside your brain that begins forming hours before you ever feel sleepy. And the third morning food works because it nudges that pathway at exactly the right moment when your brain is most receptive to instruction rather than force. That food is the banana. At first glance, it seems almost too ordinary to matter. It's cheap, everywhere, and often dismissed as nothing more than a quick snack. But when you look beneath the surface, bananas interact with the brain in a way that few other foods can. Especially in aging, adults whose sleep and memory cycles have begun to drift out of rhythm. The key lies in tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid your body cannot make on its own. It must come from food. And once inside the body, it becomes the starting point for a powerful chain reaction. Tryptophan converts into serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for emotional balance, calm focus, and the ability to encode memories properly. Then, as the day winds down, serotonin converts into melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain when it's time to sleep and how deeply it's allowed to go. When tryptophan intake is low, which is surprisingly common in older adults, serotonin levels fall. Mood becomes flatter, focus becomes fragile, and sleep becomes lighter. But the real damage happens at night because without enough serotonin to convert into melatonin, the brain never fully enters its deepest repair stages. The glymphatic system, which clears waste and toxins from the brain during sleep, slows down. Beta amyloid proteins linger longer than they should. Memory consolidation becomes incomplete. You wake up technically rested, but mentally dull. Here's the mistake most people make. They assume that if sleep is the problem, the solution must happen at night. So they reach for sleep aids, supplements, or routines designed to force rest. But forcing sleep is not the same as enabling repair. The brain heals best when sleep arrives naturally, and that natural arrival is scheduled hours earlier by what you eat in the morning. Bananas provide tryptophan in a form that is gentle, bioavailable, and perfectly timed when eaten early in the day. When you consume a banana within the first couple of hours after waking, tryptophan availability rises during daylight hours when serotonin production is most efficient. That serotonin then supports mood and focus throughout the day, reducing cortisol spikes and mental stress. And when night comes, the same biochemical pathway shifts smoothly into melatonin production without resistance, without forcing. A 2023 study from the University of Queensland followed seniors who consumed tryptophan-rich foods before noon. After 4 weeks, they reported 33% better sleep quality and significantly faster memory recall compared to those who consumed the same foods later in the day, or not at all. The timing, not just the nutrient, made the difference. But bananas offer more than tryptophan. They are also rich in vitamin B6, which is essential for converting tryptophan into usable serotonin. Without B6, tryptophan sits idle, unable to complete its role. Many supplements fail here because they provide isolated nutrients without the cofactors needed to activate them. Bananas deliver both together in a form your body understands. They also contain magnesium and potassium, two minerals that calm the nervous system and regulate nerve signaling. Magnesium reduces nighttime muscle tension and quiets overactive neurons. Potassium supports electrical balance in the brain and helps prevent nighttime restlessness. Together, they create a physiological environment that encourages deeper, uninterrupted sleep. This is why bananas don't just relax the body, they prepare the brain. And once again, timing changes everything. Most people eat bananas as an afternoon snack or avoid them entirely because they fear sugar. But when eaten in the morning, especially paired with protein or healthy fat, bananas do not spike blood sugar aggressively. Instead, they release their carbohydrates more slowly and serve as a signaling food rather than a stimulant. The best choice is a medium banana that is yellow with small brown speckles. At this stage, the antioxidants are higher, digestion is easier, and the sugar profile is gentler. Green bananas are harder to digest and can cause bloating. Overripe bananas convert too much starch into sugar. The middle ground is where the brain benefits most. Pairing matters too. When you eat a banana alongside a boiled egg, a spoon of almond butter, or a bit of yogurt, absorption slows and blood sugar remains stable. That stability tells the brain it's safe, nourished, and not under threat, which further supports serotonin balance. I once worked with a woman named Ellen, 71 years old, who described her mornings in a way that stuck with me. She said she woke up tired every day, even after a full night in bed. She couldn't remember her dreams, and she felt like her mind hadn't rested at all. We didn't change her bedtime. We didn't add supplements. We added one banana to her morning routine, 3 to 4 times a week. 2 weeks later, she said something remarkable. I don't just sleep deeper, she told me. I feel awake when I open my eyes. That's what happens when sleep becomes productive again. Not longer, not forced, but deeper and more purposeful. Now, at this point, many people ask the same question. Do I need all 3 foods every single day? And the answer is no, because the brain doesn't need excess. It needs rhythm. The brain thrives on predictable patterns. When it knows what signals to expect, it allocates resources more efficiently. That's why rotating these foods is more effective than overwhelming your system with everything at once. Think of it as giving your brain a conversation rather than a command. One morning, you emphasize choline and B12 with eggs, strengthening memory circuits and neurotransmitter production. Another morning, you emphasize stability and inflammation control with oats, calming the nervous system and protecting neurons. Another morning, you emphasize serotonin and sleep timing with a banana, aligning mood and circadian rhythm. Over the course of a week, the brain receives all the messages it needs without stress or overload. This rhythm matters because consistency is what turns nutrition into instruction. One perfect breakfast won't change much. Repeated signals, delivered calmly and regularly, change how the brain plans its nights. Eating within 2 hours of waking is important because that's when the brain's hormone profile is most responsive. Cortisol is rising, insulin sensitivity is higher, and nutrient signals are more likely to be interpreted as permission to repair rather than emergency fuel. Keeping breakfast light also matters. Heavy meals divert energy toward digestion and away from the brain. The goal is not fullness, but clarity. Clean fuel delivered with intention. This approach is not a diet. It's not a cleanse. It's not about restriction or perfection. It's about sending your brain a message every morning that says, I want to remember, I want to rest, I want to recover. And here's the quiet truth that often goes unspoken. Every morning, your brain asks a question. Will today be a day of repair or a day of decline? And that answer often arrives before you brush your teeth, before the news, before the coffee. It arrives on your plate. A couple of boiled eggs, a warm bowl of oats, a ripe banana with protein. These are not trends or tricks. They are chemical signals. Signals that tell your brain it's supported, it's safe, and it's allowed to do its work tonight. But there's one more layer to this that most people never consider. Even with the right foods, small habits can either amplify or cancel their effect entirely. And some of the most common morning behaviors quietly undo everything these foods are trying to accomplish. If you want these breakfasts to truly sharpen memory and heal the brain overnight, you need to know what to avoid just as much as what to include. And that's where we'll go next. Because here's the part that almost no one talks about. You can eat the right foods at the right time and still sabotage your brain's recovery without realizing it, simply by what you do in the first hour after breakfast. This is where many seniors get frustrated because they feel like they're doing everything right, yet the fog lingers, sleep stays light, and memory doesn't rebound the way they hoped. The reason isn't age, it's interference. Your brain, especially as you get older, is extremely sensitive to competing signals. When you give it a clear nutritional message in the morning, like choline from eggs, beta-glucan from oats, or tryptophan from a banana, the brain begins preparing its repair agenda for the night. But if that signal is immediately contradicted, the brain hesitates. And a hesitant brain doesn't repair deeply. The most common disruptor is caffeine timing. Caffeine isn't evil. In fact, in moderate amounts, it can improve alertness and even support certain cognitive functions. But when caffeine is consumed too early, too fast, or without food, it creates a cortisol spike that overrides the calming, restorative signals your breakfast just sent. Cortisol is a stress hormone. In the morning, a gentle rise is normal and healthy. A sharp spike, however, tells the brain that the environment is demanding, unpredictable, and unsafe. When that happens, the brain shifts from repair mode to survival mode. This matters because cortisol and serotonin work in opposition. High cortisol suppresses serotonin activity. That means even if you consume tryptophan from a banana or oats, the conversion into serotonin can be blunted. And if serotonin is suppressed during the day, melatonin production at night suffers. The result is the familiar pattern of feeling wired during the day but tired at night, falling asleep but waking frequently, or sleeping long hours without feeling restored. The solution isn't to eliminate coffee, it's to delay it. Waiting at least 30 to 60 minutes after breakfast before drinking caffeine allows your nutritional signals to be processed first. By then, blood sugar is stable, serotonin pathways are engaged, and cortisol rises naturally rather than explosively. Coffee then enhances alertness without hijacking the system. Another silent saboteur is added sugar. This includes sweetened coffee creamers, pastries, flavored oatmeal packets, fruit juices, and even healthy breakfast bars. Sugar causes rapid glucose spikes followed by crashes, and those swings inflame the brain. Inflammation doesn't just affect memory in the moment, it disrupts sleep architecture later that night. Studies consistently show that high sugar intake in the morning correlates with reduced deep sleep and more nighttime awakenings, even when total sleep time remains the same. What's deceptive is how mild the effect feels at first. A little sweetness seems harmless, but for the aging brain, repeated spikes act like static in the system. The brain spends energy correcting imbalances instead of repairing tissue. Then there's the issue of mental overload. Many people begin their day by immediately checking the news, emails, or social media. This floods the brain with novelty, urgency, and emotional stimuli before it's fully stabilized. Even if breakfast was perfect, this cognitive bombardment raises cortisol and adrenaline, again, shifting the brain away from restoration planning. Think of your brain like a quiet room being prepared for renovation. The nutrients you eat are the tools and materials. But if alarms keep going off, workers can't focus. The work slows. That's exactly what happens when stress signals dominate the morning. A calmer first hour doesn't require meditation or strict rules. It can be as simple as eating without screens, taking a short walk, or doing something familiar and grounding. These behaviors reinforce the nutritional message that the body is safe, supported, and not under threat. Another overlooked factor is hydration. After sleep, the brain is mildly dehydrated. Even small fluid deficits reduce attention, working memory, and processing speed. Drinking a glass of water in the morning supports blood flow and nutrient delivery to the brain. When combined with breakfast, hydration enhances the effect of choline, glucose stability, and amino acid transport. Without it, nutrients move more slowly, and their signaling impact is weakened. There's also the matter of consistency. The brain learns patterns. When breakfast timing and composition vary wildly from day to day, the brain cannot predict resource availability. In response, it becomes conservative, allocating fewer resources to repair. This is why irregular eaters often report feeling mentally inconsistent, sharp one day and foggy the next. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It means a recognizable rhythm. Eating within the same general window each morning, rotating the same supportive foods, and avoiding extremes helps the brain trust that resources will arrive. Trust, in biological terms, leads to investment. The brain invests in repair when it expects support. Now, let's talk about one more factor that quietly determines whether these foods truly sharpen memory or just maintain the status quo. Movement. Light movement after breakfast improves insulin sensitivity, enhances blood flow to the brain, and accelerates nutrient delivery. This doesn't mean exercise or exertion. A 10-minute walk, gentle stretching, or simple household activity is enough. Movement tells the brain that the body is functional and engaged, reinforcing the decision to invest in long-term repair rather than short-term survival. Without movement, nutrients still help, but their impact is muted. With movement, their message becomes louder. When all of these pieces align, something subtle but powerful happens over time. Memory retrieval becomes smoother, words come more easily, sleep deepens without effort. You stop waking up feeling like your brain never shut off. These changes don't arrive dramatically. They arrive quietly, then compound. And that's the most important point to understand. Brain recovery is not an event, it's a trend. The direction matters more than the speed. But there is one final misconception that keeps many people from fully benefiting from this approach. It's the belief that if improvement doesn't happen quickly, it isn't happening at all. That misunderstanding leads people to abandon routines just as their brain is beginning to respond. To know whether these foods are truly working for you, you need to know what signs to look for and when to expect them. And that's exactly what we'll cover next. This is where everything comes together, because once you understand what real progress looks like, you stop chasing quick fixes and start trusting the process your brain has been quietly following all along. One of the biggest mistakes people make is expecting memory to snap back overnight as if the brain were a light switch. But the brain doesn't heal in jumps. It heals in signals, layers, and patterns. And when those patterns are finally aligned, the changes show up in ways that are easy to miss unless you know what you're looking for. The first sign is not sharper memory. It's calmer thinking. People often notice that their inner noise softens. Thoughts feel less frantic. Decision-making feels lighter. This happens because serotonin balance improves before memory consolidation does. Your brain becomes less reactive, less tense, and more efficient with the energy it has. That calm is not the goal, but it is the doorway. A stressed brain does not repair deeply. A calm brain does. The second sign comes quietly. Usually in the evening, you begin to feel sleepy at a more natural hour. Not exhausted, not wired, but gently ready for rest. This is melatonin timing correcting itself. When serotonin pathways are supported in the morning, melatonin doesn't need to be forced at night. Sleep arrives on schedule, and when it does, it goes deeper. Then comes the third sign, and this is where many people suddenly realize something has changed. You wake up and don't immediately reach for stimulation. You don't feel that heavy mental drag pulling you back under. You open your eyes and feel present. That doesn't mean every day is perfect. It means the brain is finally completing its overnight work instead of leaving it unfinished. Only after these signs appear does memory begin to sharpen in noticeable ways. Words come faster. You remember why you walked into a room. You recall conversations with less effort. This delay frustrates some people, but it's actually a good sign because it means the brain prioritized repair before performance. That's how healthy systems behave. This is why consistency matters more than enthusiasm. Doing this for a few days and stopping won't give your brain enough data to trust the pattern. Doing it gently, repeatedly, week after week, teaches the brain that resources are reliable. Once that trust is built, repair accelerates. It's also important to understand what this approach is not. It is not a replacement for medical care. It is not a cure for neurological disease. It is not a promise of eternal youth. What it is a way to remove unnecessary obstacles that prevent your brain from doing what it already knows how to do. Too often, aging is blamed for things that are actually caused by mixed signals. Sugar spikes that confuse insulin, stress hormones that drown out serotonin, skipped meals that tell the brain resources are scarce. When those signals are corrected, the brain responds with gratitude. That gratitude looks like better sleep. It looks like steadier focus. It looks like feeling more like yourself again, not because you added something artificial, but because you stopped blocking something natural. And here's the most empowering part of all. This routine does not demand perfection. You don't need every morning to be ideal. You don't need rigid rules. What matters is direction. When most of your mornings send your brain the message that it is supported, the occasional off day doesn't undo the progress. The brain is resilient when it feels respected. So tomorrow morning, when you stand in your kitchen, remember this. Your brain is listening. It's listening not to promises, but to patterns. A couple of boiled eggs, a warm bowl of oats, a ripe banana paired with protein. These are not just foods. They are instructions. Instructions that say you want clarity, not confusion. Rest, not restlessness. Repair, not decline. Over time, those instructions shape your nights, and your nights shape your future. If this message reached you, it means you care about your mind, your independence, and the quality of your years ahead. That awareness alone already puts you ahead of the curve. And if you carry this forward gently and consistently, your brain will meet you halfway, quietly rebuilding while you sleep, one night at a time. Because recovery doesn't begin at bedtime, it begins at breakfast.